It commenced subtly, akin to many astronomical discoveries throughout history. Not through a dazzling burst or sudden illumination in the night, but with a mere whisper. A delicate shift against the starry expanse was so precise that even the most sophisticated tracking systems all but missed it. Initially, astronomers categorized it as a comet, perhaps an asteroid on a solitary journey. However, closer examination revealed that this visitor evaded all the classifications we attempted to apply. It possessed an unnatural symmetry, an eerie silence, and a level of control that suggested it wasn't merely drifting through space. This led scientists to recall Oumuamua, that enigmatic fragment from beyond our solar system that passed nearby years ago, leaving more inquiries than responses. Yet this newcomer, named 3I Atlas, was entirely different. Larger. Slower. More intelligent. And as the James Webb Space Telescope focused on it, an unsettling truth emerged. This was not just another interstellar stone. It represented something far more sophisticated, possibly self-aware, and perhaps even waiting for our acknowledgement. The odds of a random object navigating through debris fields, solar storms, and collision zones so seamlessly were astonishingly low. It wasn't simply implausible, it verged on the impossible without guidance from an intelligent source. It resembled a master chess player skillfully maneuvering across a board, sidestepping every trap. This object suggested a degree of foresight that was hard to overlook. Then, Webb's data arrived. Thermal scans showcased an unprecedented phenomenon, a consistent pulse of heat. It wasn't chaotic or random. It exuded steadiness, as if the object was signaling deliberately. Spectrographic analysis unraveled an additional enigma. The surface contained hyper-reflective substances unknown to any celestial bodies, and its internal structure hinted at hollow spaces. Most alarmingly, Webb detected a faint electromagnetic pulse repeating every 147 seconds. This signal matched that of a known pulsar, despite this object lacking a spinning core or magnetic field, and having no natural justification for such emissions. It wasn't merely transmitting energy, it was imitating something. Comparing the data with that of Oumuamua heightened scientists' apprehensions. That same signal had been detected in the earlier object before it disappeared. However, this time, the signal was stronger and clearer. Oumuamua had always perplexed astronomers, a cigar-shaped fragment that exhibited unexplainable acceleration, moving silently and faster than gravity could account for. Some claimed it was extraterrestrial technology, while others dismissed it as coincidence. The debate reached an end when the object exited the system. Now, with 3I Atlas, the intrigue resurfaced, but this time the visitor was stable, purposeful, and patient. Many began to suspect what remained unspoken. If Oumuamua was merely a scout, then 3I Atlas represented something more significant. A probe not only observing but interacting. The first phase was over, and this felt like the second. For a period, the object's path was predictable. Then, unexpectedly, telescopes in both Chile and Hawaii noted a sudden course correction. It wasn't a natural adjustment caused by gravity or solar winds. It was a precise maneuver, deliberately bringing it closer to Earth's orbital plane. This was no accident. It implied a decision. That one word reverberated through mission control. This object was not drifting, it was making choices. Meanwhile, independent researchers focused on the unusual electromagnetic pulses. Utilizing advanced AI detection algorithms, they uncovered something remarkable. The sequences were not random, they were mathematical. The golden ratio, prime spirals, and Fibonacci patterns emerged. Symbols found in DNA, galaxies, and the fabric of life itself. Even more unsettling, the signal changed precisely when Webb locked onto it, as though 3I Atlas realized it was being observed. It was not only transmitting, it was responding. As Webb continued its investigation, the implications darkened. Traces of complex carbon compounds coated its exterior. Unlike the chaotic mixtures typical in comets, these were refined and orderly, the very building blocks of life. Some began to whisper a possibility that felt almost unfathomable. Could this object serve as a seed ship? A craft intended to transport life's ingredients across galaxies, to plant, merge, and assimilate? If true, Earth might not simply be an accidental stop, it could be a target. Then, an anomaly emerged from Antarctica. A classified surveillance balloon detected a sharp microwave burst above the pole, synchronizing perfectly with another alteration in the object's trajectory. Almost immediately, seismic sensors beneath the ice picked up ultra-low frequency vibrations that mirrored the deep space pulse that 3I Atlas had been sending. The mystery was no longer confined to the cosmos. It resonated beneath us, hinting at a connection within our. Finally, an unusual revelation emerged that blurred the lines between coincidence and design. When a young analyst overlaid 3I Atlas's trajectory onto ancient star charts, its path intersected not just with planetary alignments but also with constellations revered by civilizations across millennia: Orion, Draco, and the Pleiades. Time mapping revealed these intersections designed a perfect spiral. Identical spirals had been etched into stones by isolated cultures and painted into caves by ancestors unaware of each other's existence. Some discoveries in astronomy arrive like whispers, subtle hints in the data that later swell into revelations too large to ignore. 3I Atlas began as one of those whispers. A faint object moving through the night sky, at first mistaken for a comet or asteroid. But almost immediately it became clear that this visitor was something else entirely. Its symmetry, its silence, its deliberate motion, it all defied the labels we tried to impose. With each observation, the sense grew stronger that this was not a random fragment of rock but something built, something intentional, and possibly something aware. As the James Webb Space Telescope locked onto it, a series of details emerged that only deepened the mystery. Heat radiated in pulses instead of chaotic bursts, like a signal rather than a natural emission. Internal scans suggested hollow chambers and hyper-reflective compounds unknown in nature. Most chilling of all was the electromagnetic pulse, repeating every 147 seconds, echoing the same frequency once faintly detected in Oumuamua before it left our system. That earlier visitor had been enigmatic but passive, like a silent scout. 3I Atlas was different. It was not just moving through space, it was behaving. When astronomers mapped its course backward, they saw that its trajectory wasn't simply unlikely. It was impossible without intervention. It avoided hazards, rode gravitational currents with elegance, and even shifted course at key moments as though responding to invisible instructions. This precision sparked whispers of intent. Then came something harder to ignore, a sudden, unexplainable maneuver that placed the object closer to Earth's orbital plane. It wasn't gravity. It wasn't chance. It was choice. The signals it emitted grew stranger under analysis. They weren't random bursts but sequences rooted in mathematics: the golden ratio, Fibonacci spirals, prime number sequences, the universal language of life and structure. Even more unsettling was the way those signals changed in direct response to our observations. When Webb's infrared sensors fixed on it, the pulse shifted. It knew we were watching. And in its reply, some saw not just numbers but meaning, as if it was speaking in the oldest language the universe knows, the mathematics of creation. The object's presence was soon felt on Earth itself. Subtle oscillations in the magnetosphere rippled in rhythm with its emissions, briefly disrupting satellites and even causing the Voyager probes to behave strangely. For 6 minutes, those distant machines sent bursts of data no one has yet decoded. Some saw this as coincidence. Others as contact. Whatever it was, it seemed less like an observation and more like a test. A knock at the door to see if anyone answered. New theories began to emerge. Some believed that Oumuamua had been the lock, a silent mechanism waiting to be measured, and that 3I Atlas was the key, sent not merely to observe but to activate something, on Earth, within our technology, or perhaps beyond. Then came the discovery of subtle gravitational distortions around it. Light bent in ways that suggested not mass but manipulation. Time itself seemed to drift slightly in its presence, hinting at something more profound than a ship. Perhaps a moving portal, a gate folding space and time around itself. If this was true, it meant 3I Atlas wasn't simply traveling. It was bridging. And Earth might not be its first stop, only its next. But the closer it came, the more disruptive it became. Radiation bursts in unusual bands fried sensors and observatories, temporarily blinding our instruments. Some researchers concluded it had the ability not just to broadcast but to control what we could or could not see. Its emissions looked less like beacons and more like deliberate interference, the kind of field you would expect from something guarding itself. And as it moved, Earth itself seemed to respond. Volcanoes, crystal-rich caves, even fault lines vibrated in rhythm with its pulses, a global resonance as though the planet had been waiting for a signal it remembered. Entire populations of animals, migratory birds, whales, even subterranean insects, altered their navigation patterns in sync with the object. Something deep and ancient was being stirred. Then came the signal to the moon. A structured, multi-dimensional transmission that no language could capture, less a sentence than a set of instructions. It was received at a specific lunar coordinate known for its unusual density. For decades, scientists had debated whether these mass concentrations were natural relics or something more. Now, the possibility arose that 3I Atlas was attempting to activate them. In secret, military organizations tried to test the object with a covert probe. What returned was not reassuring. Just before its systems went dark, the probe recorded an energy wall, a lattice-like barrier that reflected its own signal back in fractal mimicry. The implication was undeniable. The object was not only shielded but reactive. It watched the watcher, mirrored the intruder, and shut it down. In that moment, even skeptics were forced to admit the possibility that this thing was more than a machine. It had awareness. It had memory. And so the questions grew darker. What if 3I Atlas was never moving at all, but waiting? Positioned along a trajectory ancient civilizations once marked in star maps, awakening only when a species reached a certain threshold, capable of detecting, of responding, of fearing? What if every signal, every shift, every pulse was not meant for us at all, but for something else? Something still on its way, drawn here by the beacon we cannot silence.